Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. It's once again a full house of participants. However, unfortunately, we are not looking back on a Hibs win this week. But that, of course, means I'm joined by Harry, Liam, and Craig. I trust we're all well, gentlemen. Harry, I'll come to you first. You've had a lovely weekend, haven't you?
Yeah, no, mate. You lied to our lovely audience. You told them that I was in Madrid instead of doing a podcast. But I was actually in Ireland, and so you were
Oh.
close. But I was all over Europe and all that fun stuff. Actually, in mainland Europe for a change. But just to say, you're loving the energy. Let's keep this going. I'm vibing with you.
I don't. Do you know what? I think Liam will hate it, but I think after staying up to watch the NFL till like 4 o'clock this morning or half three, I think I've just filled my body with so much caffeine that I'm just a smidgen hyper. Get that filthy rag out of this fucking camera, Harry. Liam, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, mate. Thank you.
Fantastic. Craig, trust you're
All
well.
good. All good.
Disappointed to have to work and not make the trip up to Ross County on Saturday.
Absolutely. Mikey going on holiday. How dare he? But he'll be
Unacceptable.
forgiven eventually.
Right, a couple of weeks ago, Motherwell game, we went on a different route to start the podcast and started talking about whether we'd finish third. So, what are we going to do today? We're not going to talk about the Ross County game. To start with, we're going to talk about what is appearing to be, hopefully, potentially imminent signing to Hibs Craig. I did just say his name early before we started recording it to try and get this right. So, Alassana Manneh potentially coming in from the Danish second tier. The sort of links came out last week, and then over the weekend, the Danish press are suggesting he said his goodbyes. What's your sort of thoughts on this player if it's to come to fruition?
Yeah, it's difficult to say too much until you've given it the old eye test. To be fair, from the highlights on YouTube, he's obviously absolutely outstanding, as everybody is. I remember Frank JJ, what a highlight reel he had on YouTube. But no, from the things I've read and looked into him a bit, deep seems like a deep line playmaker or midfielder anyway. And I've seen him taking a few shots for the edge of the box, so that's probably the thing that stands out to me the most. Somebody that's not afraid
Mhm.
to take a shot, and he's left-footed as well, which I like as well. I love a good left-footed player.
Mhm. Liam, is there anything that sort of jumps off the page to you when you see this and maybe a bit different in profile potentially to what we've been linked with in the past few months or winter, sorry?
Aye, I mean, the bit in the Observer certainly seems to have him sort of pigeoned as a sort of deep line playmaker type. So I think he's going to be the sort of player who's going to come and get the ball off the centre halves. But I think if you look at his stats, he seems to perform fairly well in the sort of defensive action side of the game. So maybe a bit more of an all rounder than we've got at the club at the moment, albeit obviously playing in a very different style in a different league. In sort of Danish. Second tier. So I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult to say without having obviously watched them play in sort of real life situation. But maybe it's a bit of a move to have a guy who can maybe do more of the sort of aspects of the game than we've got at the moment. You know, a more complete sort of profile of player than we've got at the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, Harry, it's a market that other clubs in the sort of league have sort of dipped into more, and this is again, I think, where we question our geography strength in terms of if Denmark is Scandinavia or if it's not. But that's Aberdeen have definitely sort of went into that window recently. The last Hibs player I remember us signing was Nicholas Gunnarsson. I might be wrong there. Oh, well, Hallberg, I suppose, but he came from Italy, so I don't think he counts. What do you make of us looking at potentially a different market here?
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think what age is he again? Right, me.
26.
26.
Yeah, like I think that that's something we've identified as well as a kind of area that, like, as a age demographic in the squad that we could probably fill out more. We seem to either be getting players at the tail end of their career or players at the start of their career. Like, I don't mind that idea of getting players that should probably be in their prime or coming to it because it means in theory that should be when they're at their most consistent. I don't have a Scooby about the boy. I was thinking though, like when me and Craig used to play Fortnite back in the day together, whenever we'd ask where we're going to land, we'd always go tilted. And then as soon as I heard this boy's on the Horizon, I was like, signing, signing. I don't care who it is. I just want bodies in, lads. Eh?
Yeah.
So yeah.
If you want an idea
It's
of the caliber of the player, I did see that for the calibre of the club. You saw Celtic have been linked to a 21-year-old centre half from there today.
Right.
£2 million signing.
Mhm.
Slot Sager or Lot Sager, I think his name was. Anthony Joseph tweeted earlier if anyone wants to find the reference. So, whilst they're obviously in the second tier in Denmark, they're very much a top flight club. Those of you who have a certain vintage will remember we played them in an intertotal game about 20 years ago, where we I think, did we lose the first leg over there? And we went 1-0. I remember going 1-0 down
Yeah,
the road.
we won 2-1, but went out.
Aye, and I know who the goal scorers were on that day, because one of them, I think, may have been one of only 2 goals that he scored for Hibs. I'll leave the listeners see if they can guess that one without Googling it.
I know who it is. And he definitely did score another goal. I know that.
Against Kelly.
I know.
Against Kelly.
Yeah, he maybe scored. Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm saying it's a different market for us, but we have got some recent experience of signing Gambian players. So let's hope that if he does come in, he's a marked improvement on Pakajabi and Mamadou Bojang. It would obviously signify, Harry, you mentioned it there about players coming in. It would be the first player in the window. What else do you let's work on the assumption that he becomes a Hibs player over the next couple of days, and by the time we're recording next Monday on deadline day, of course, what looks ideal for you transaction wise between now and the end of the window, and maybe incomings and outgoings?
I think outgoings. I think Amos has made it public that he wants to leave on his side, and I think the club probably want to push him on as well. I think Harry McCurdy isn't getting a sniff, and whenever he is, he's looking as useful as ever. And then for me, I think Smith. I just think he's good as a backup. It's kind of similar to Rocky. I think that when they're in the team, they can make an impact, but I don't want to rely on them for half a season. So I think ideally we probably get a goalkeeper in that can at least compete with Smith, because at the moment we're kind of rocking with one keeper at the club, in my opinion. Barsic shouldn't be anywhere near the starting 11, and not having an alternate option is a bit scary in case, touch wood, something happened to Smith. And then obviously I just think McCullough, the last few times he's come on, even before injury, I just don't think he's looked up to it. So for me, I'd like a striker. So in short, I'd like a striker and a keeper minimum, assuming that we've got Manneh coming in.
So that was an acceptance that he was injured, though, yeah. Just to keep that going. Yeah, he won't.
Sure.
Liam, you can obviously have a touch on players that you want to come in, but I think we all know that your number one demand is a number 6, but sort of some links maybe that Amos and McCurdy departures might be closer as well, albeit was it Hibs Central or Hibs News or something on Twitter said he's I mean, I don't know how much more reliable you need that Amos wants to leave than him posting it on the 1st of January saying I'm ready to go. But is there any other players other than they two?
See, we were talking about reliable sources. Did anyone see the tweet that Hibs Observer put out, or it was someone else put it out, about Manneh signing? And I think it's the Hy-Vee Media account or something replied saying it's a pre-contract in reply to someone, and Patrick McFarlane just replied saying wrong. Nothing else.
It's fun. The worst bit is in the article. Do you know what I mean? Like the tweet that you're replying to, it's in the article to suggest that it's going to be. Oh, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Difficult because there's very few, like, you know, there's a very, very small band of people who are actually genuinely ITK, and then there's another probably 95% of the people who want to be ITK but are not. And maybe hear wee bits of info that's like third or fourth hand. I think it's quite funny this time of year. What was the question again? Sorry.
Other departures potentially other than Amos and McCurdy, if there was anyone.
Miko and Kwon, and definitely Barsic if we could. But Barsic's obviously entirely dependent on getting another goalkeeper in.
Craig, what's the top priorities for you before next Monday?
Like just in terms of departures or overall?
Well, overall, buddy.
Overall, probably 3 in, 3 out. I don't think there's too much of an issue with the squad size as it is. Just I'd like to have more reliable and quality options coming from the bench and sort of to challenge for first team places, basically. So yeah, I just add more quality as opposed to numbers.
Yeah, and of course we'll be live as transfer window day, deadline day goes on next weekend, next Monday. obviously, I think are we going for a 7:30 start? I don't think we're hanging it out until midnight next week as we have done in
Closes at 11.
previous
You'll be
windows.
pleased to know it closes at 11 on
Right.
Monday, I
Okay.
believe. So it's only to go till midnight, but aye, we'll go
I
for a
mean,
wee bit.
and
Depends
if
how
we want
dramatic it
to.
is.
If we want to encourage people to join us next week, Harry, it'll be your last episode with us for maybe the remainder of this season, probably until the summer. You're moving your supporters club to Southeast Asia for a few months.
Indeed, yeah. Mainland Europe HSC is no longer the way for me. Big man's leaving London at the end of the week, and then instead of coming back to Scotland, I'm just going to piss off to Southeast Asia HSC. So you never know if there's a beach in Cambodia that's got solid enough connection. Not a beach in Cambodia, sorry, a beach in Vietnam. You don't really get many beaches in a landlocked country. Then I might jump on. Honestly, I've got 5 countries I'm going to, and one of them's not got beaches, so I nailed that. But hopefully, I'll jump on at some point before the season ends. But you'll be seeing a lot less of Specky, unfortunately.
I know. You're two games before you go though, right? And then you're sort of, but you're 2 games, 1 pod.
Correct, mate.
Right, well, that's sort of where we're at on transfer talk. Unfortunately, no real development since last week. We're just hoping that this one wraps up. So let's look back on Saturday with a fairly drab affair. We came away with a point, Liam. Overall, what's your feelings coming out of the game?
It's obviously good to still be unbeaten, but I think you have to look at, both the game in isolation and it as a whole and say it does feel very much like 2 points dropped, just given the circumstances. And I think, we lost to the other worst team, didn't lose, we drew with the other worst team in the league on this recent run as well. I think it has to be factored in. So I think it's disappointing that we've not managed to win, because I think, again, another 2 points in the teams of others would have been fantastic, but also keeping that distance between the teams below us as well. Because I'm conscious that the league table is still really tight. There's still 9 games to go until the split as well. Fucking lot can change in 9 games. As we've seen, we've gone on a 9-game unbeaten run and everything's changed. So there is still a lot to play for. And there's a lot of movement at the moment as well. There's clubs are making moves in the transfer market. Motherwell's managers resigned today. So it just, I'm just a long-winded way of saying there's a lot up in the air as a result of that result on Saturday.
Yeah, there's the sort of first talking point, Harry, in the game. Hibs didn't make any changes, and the game didn't exactly spring to life. The first sort of action in the game really was obviously the penalty that was given, that nobody, I think, really seen coming, in terms of, the game had actually progressed a good minute or so, and Nicky Cadden gets penalised for a handball. What were your thoughts on that? Do you understand the logic behind it? Do you understand the reasoning for it, or?
No, I don't understand the thought process of bringing in VAR with referees that are incompetent. As I've said from the start, there's no point giving monkeys the key to a car and expecting them to drive it. Like, it's just a joke. Hibs just time after time get shafted by VAR. People just want to impact games because they've not had a chance to do so beforehand. And I'm just sick of it. That's like, it's the same as the Dundee United game earlier in the season. I don't see this as Hibs dropping 2 points. I see it as an idiot has made a stupid decision and Hibs have had to suffer the consequence. And it's not the fact that he's made 2 stupid decisions in one time. Do we need to speak about that Jordan White penalty, by the way? That's somehow worse than McCullough's at Ibrox. That was absolutely short. Obviously,
Sure.
you got to give the goalie credit for making a save on a penalty, but it literally couldn't have been easier. Like, that is shocking, Jordan White. But yeah, for me, I don't see the logic. It's obviously hit his hand. It's not intentional. It's not impacted the play. And also for me, it did seem to come quite late. If Josh Campbell wasn't down injured, do you think that they even look at it? Because for me, it's weird that it took so long for them to actually because it was about a minute afterwards that they actually said checking for potential penalty. It seemed really non-fluid and weird.
Yeah, we've obviously debated it with sort of the guys from Lombangers and stuff, and various group chats and that. And I think my understanding from Matty and Colin is that they don't think it's a penalty, but they understand the reasoning why it has to go to VAR. I don't think it's a mistake. I appreciate if there's I think the rationale is that if the referee hasn't seen it, they have to give him the opportunity to see it. But I think all they're doing by letting him see it is giving him an opportunity to make a mistake. I just don't think it's a penalty. I don't see the. I don't think his hand's in a particularly unnatural place. I think he's sort of slowing down and starting to turn, and there's no influence on the game, and I mean he nearly scores to be fair, but like there's no Ross County player coming in. That ball's going out for a goal kick. Like maybe it's just the fact that the bar's too low. Like that could obviously the penalty was saved, but for such a non-event, it's like game altering, and maybe that's more in general terms of football and the rules just now that the bar's too low for penalty kicks. Craig.
And I think you've been far too diplomatic and far too kind on the referee there, and it's a shocker. It's a really, really poor decision. The fact that they don't deem that a natural position for the arm is beyond me. They clearly have nobody in the VAR room who's actually played football at any level, even fives level. Even if you know yourself when the ball's bouncing across you, you go to turn and let it go past your arm comes out. Like that's what it does. It impacts the game in no way whatsoever. The Ross County players don't claim for it at all. Not that that means it's not a penalty if people don't claim for it, but it's a additional factor that tells you it's not a penalty. Like there's just nothing about that it's a penalty. It's just not end of. And for whatever reason, the VAR room have told them to look at it. Like you say, that just gives the referee the opportunity to make the mistake, but also I would say in that scenario it puts pressure on him for them to even highlight it, to suggest that should be even looked at as a penalty. I think is just so wrong. Like not that the English Premier League's a great barometer, but I think even if you look at that one in England, like they don't even look at that twice. They just look at that once and go, no, that move on. They don't even stop the game really. So I think we really need to get away from these ones where we're just looking to give something. We're looking to try and give an excuse to give a penalty. Like it's just not. Let's get on with the game. There's no need to give a penalty for that.
Playing the consensus in the YouTube comments, I can see you've been trying to drive discussion in there around whether it's a penalty or not. It has been that it's not a penalty. Are you in a position to provide any balance on it potentially being a penalty, or are you of the same mind as the rest of us?
On any of the refereeing decisions, you're coming to the wrong person. To be honest, I have no balance to find. I don't have so much sort of falterings with I don't see as much fault with the system perhaps as you guys do, but I just think it's just an example of a really poor referee doing a really poor job. In both instances, as he demonstrated throughout the game, in all honesty, there was a couple of times where we were in a position for him to just play a really easy and obvious advantage, and for some mystifying reason, he brought the game back, halted the advantage. There's a term the young people are throwing about these days called main guy energy. He had major main guy energy on Saturday, like he wanted to be the star of the show. I mean, this is the same official that was caught giving a wee wink to Philippe Clement in the Arts Rangers game not all that long ago. There's something about him, to be honest. Don't want to personalise it too much, but frankly, he's just not very good at his job. And I really struggle to understand why he's refereeing at the top level, because he's a fairly new one, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely the last couple of years. We can compare his tenure compared to the other, like your Nick Walsh and Clancy's and stuff like that.
Must be so bad if he's what's getting called up. I hate to see the other guys.
Yeah, I think we had was it the Motherwell game? I definitely didn't recognise the referee. I sort of had to Google him. I can't even remember his name now, but didn't recognise him. So I don't know if there's like a.
No.
Honestly, mate, I can't remember. I just remember before the game being like, nada clue who this guy is. JXM in the chat thinks it is a penalty. Reasoning, pen, hands away from the body, soft, but it's a penalty.
Can I just answer to that one? Like, I get that it's hit his hand, but for me, a foul needs to provide a team some form of advantage, or needs to do the team that was on the receiving end some form of disservice, and that's not done anything. It's the ball's accidentally hit some player's hand with no intention. The only thing that's wrong there is the referee's not seen it and given a goal kick instead of a corner. Like there's literally nothing bad happened to either team. So for me, it's just a stupid incident to give a penalty for.
Yeah, look, we mentioned the referee's performance in whilst it means we won't be looking at the game in any sort of chronological order, like throughout the game he was horrific in my opinion, probably for both sides.
Mate, he
There's a
gave
point.
twice. I don't know if you guys noticed, but two times in the game, a team committed a foul, and then he played advantage for the team that committed the foul. Then when they lost the ball, he gave the free kick the other way. I've never
Yeah.
seen that in my life. It was so stupid.
Can I ask a point of clarification as well? We see at the very end of the game where he signalled for a free kick to us, and
And then
blew
didn't
the
let it
whistle.
hit. No.
Do you
Aye.
have to actually signal it and still do it as well? Because I don't know, maybe on another game, I would just look by it, but I think just because it was such obviously a drastically poor performance, the couple of things I've mentioned, obviously Harry's called out, as well as probably the two major decisions in the game being wrong.
I don't
Can't help but
understand
look
that.
at that.
I don't
No,
understand why you're blown for it. Like, again, we're not experts on Sonny can maybe ask, is it referee view or something like that? But I don't know. All the rules seem so different all the time for me with when to call a game. Like if it's a goal kick, they wait until the ball's in play. But if it's like you say, they blow a foul there, then given the way he went the rest of the game, I think he probably just changed his mind and went, fuck it, I'll do. Do you know, the one that fully made my head lost, I think, is when Harry mentioned there, I think Josh Campbell won the ball and he waited for like our attack to finish, then gave Ross County a foul. And I don't know if that's like, oh, you've got to let the attack play out, but it just wasn't a foul. And then when he at 1-1 late on, he gave us a foul at the edge of the box when beat us, got 40 yards of space in front of him.
that's what I was talking about.
Oh my
I had head
God.
loss there, I had head loss.
Oh.
When they gave up, what do you call it, the softest penalty ever because it literally glanced off someone's fingertips, and then at the other end, someone essentially 2 foot Martin Boyle in the back, and then you guys play on there. That's
The
no worries. Aye,
gee.
I was living.
Anyway, let's
Oh,
continue our referee bashing. I'm sure Ross County. Well, I'm going to put a pin in the referee bashing just now. Ross County offered absolutely fuck all, and anyone that thinks they offered otherwise are delusional. And the reason that you think that is because you're a football fan and you worry. Like, you worry because you're a football fan and your team are only one goal up. Ross County had one shot on target in the game out with the penalties, and it was early doors, but Smith dealt with comfortably. I appreciate you are concerned your team are 1-0 up and you just always think the worst. Ross County were not going to score a goal in that game other than for that penalty kick.
But they're not
Were
vindicated though, Ian. If they were feeling like that you're only 1-0 up, there's always leaves that chance.
There's a chance the referees could chuck it for you, is what I'm saying. Like the people Hibs should have killed the game off. Aye, sure, go on. You want to win games 2, 3, 4-0. You're allowed to win games of football 1-0. You are allowed to do that.
It wasn't really the conditions that were conducive to a high scoring game of football either, was it? Like it was always one of those games that was probably going to be decided by a goal either way. I think our XG was 0.76 or something, depending on where you pick it up from. It's not like we created a glut of chances ourselves. We probably created more than they did, but we didn't create, particularly the second half. With the game really, in all honesty, kind of had died out. I felt like it was heading to a fairly comfortable 1-0 personally. I didn't have the sort of same jitters that I had earlier on the season when I was watching us defend a 1-goal lead.
Well, it just frustrates me, and I totally understand that it is your natural instinct, especially as when it's your team, to think, you think the worst. That's how many times have we been on here saying you get more nervous when your team are ahead. Like I totally understand that, but just go back and watch the game. Ross County were doing nothing. Hibs were defending well. There is also the fact that Ross County are also a football team and they are allowed to attack. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just Hibs just going, like, they totally changed their shape, brought on their best striker. Like, but Hibs were dealing with it well, and the referee has, in my opinion, stole 2 points from us. Ross County were not going to score a goal. Hibs, if anything, were carrying more of a threat still on the counter than they were doing. And it's very frustrating. Sorry, I just had to get that rant out there because it was really annoying me. Any other? I take it you agree that it's not a penalty in the second instance as well.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's quite as, for me, it's not quite as glaringly poor a decision as the first one, because there is a clip there, and maybe in first viewing when the referee's actually seen it from his angle, you'll just see Smith coming out, sticking the leg into him, and I mean, when I say clip, I mean like there's the slightest contact, and the guy's already on his way down. He's in the air by the time he touches him. So again, the ball's going out of the park. You see ones like that 100 times every football match where somebody kicks the ball away or kicks the ball out or takes a shot and it goes over, and then there's a wee bit of contact after the person takes a shot back, maybe even a block or something, and they just aren't given. And I think that should have just been one of these ones where the guys clearly overran it. It's going out. Maybe Smith a wee bit hasty getting out there and sticking the leg out, but again, nah, not a penalty for me.
Reckless, of course. That's what it was described as. Reckless. Harry,
I was absolutely robbed. I reckon I know what you're going to say here, so I'm just going to jump in and say it. I was absolutely robbed by the referee. I was even more robbed than Hibs because I've been battering on the drum about how Dylan Levitt is involved in goals, and it should have been a 1-0 win. Dylan Levitt securing all 3 points, but it was stolen from me. Gutted, absolutely gutted. I think he was. I think everybody was crap. I think it's one of those ones that I don't really know what the scenario, like the situation is to improve that pitch. Like it's obviously you're never going to be able to bring in the pitch needs to meet a certain standard because that wasn't a playable football game. Like the pitch was atrocious. To move the ball, they literally had to lift it with every pass. It's not on. I don't know what you're supposed to do because obviously Ross County probably aren't financially able to keep a really high quality pitch all year round, especially given the climate when they're up north. But it's really frustrating that you've got to go up there and it's a different game to what you're playing at every other stadium in the league. So I just wanted to get that off the chest as well because I do find that quite frustrating.
You listened to sorry Liam, Jeff Sanderson on the pitch because I was going to take us in a totally different angle there.
No, I just kind of come back to what we were talking about last week. I think McDermott Park and Victoria Park up in Dingwall, the 2 pitches are very similar in that they're heavy and they're not particularly well maintained. The 2 clubs choose to spend their money on other things. So, I think there has to be some sort of, I don't know whether it's like some sort of subsidy from the league or some sort of financial incentive for clubs to maintain a decent standard pitch. And obviously had the issues with Dundee last season. Their pitch this season's been brilliant by all accounts. So it is possible. I don't accept that just because you live up north means the conditions in the pitch are bad. I wouldn't imagine there's much less sunlight in Dingwall than there is in Perth or Dundee, for example. I think similar circumstances, the difference in temperature will be negligible, I would have thought, for that kind of distance. So I'm not for making excuses for them. Roy McGregor's a very wealthy man. He manages to sign about 20 players every single January transfer window to dig them out of the shit. So maybe if he redirected the money he spends on those 20 players to actually, maintain a playing surface that was worthy of being in the top flight, I'd have more sympathy. But he doesn't. So I mean, I know the consensus is you'd like to keep them in the league because it's a good away day and everyone loves the Mallard, but I'd quite happily see them go down, to be honest. They offer nothing to the league.
Yeah, I am. I can't be arsed with them. Period. St Johnstone and Ross County. Fuck off. I'd be quite happy with that. No, Harry, what I wanted to say, you were fairly vocal within about 10 minutes of this last week's episode going out around our apparent criticism of Dylan Levitt last week. He was obviously the sort of highlight of the weekend from a Hibs point of view, scoring a goal. A couple of listeners decided that apparently we've got a new boo boy in Dylan Levitt in the mark of Jimmy Jago, which I don't know. I've personally been quite critical, but what did you think of that last week? And at halftime, were you buzzing to come on here and give us something?
If I can give you guys stick, I'm always gonna. I love that. The point I didn't get last week was I think Craig was the first one that brought it in, and then nobody called him out for it. But Craig mentioned that his physicality against like non-league players showed, and it's like just because they're non-league doesn't mean they're not physical boys. Like the boys that he was up against in midfield for Clydebank were like 6'2" and bulky.
Yeah,
like
his
physicality is
athletes,
obviously. But who cares? Like Dylan Levitt, the downside of his game is his physicality.
But physicality isn't just like brute strength, Harry.
You've stood next to plenty of professional athletes, Harry. You know the difference between a professional athlete and a plumber. Like there's a massive difference. So if you're getting caught out there,
but you're making it sound like these guys are just having like Sunday league football kicking it about a park like once every 2 weeks. Like it absolutely is. These guys are training 2-3 times a week. like non-league football in Scotland, it's obviously not the same standard as it is in the leagues above, but it's still a decent standard.
I
Like,
train that more than that, Harry.
all right, well, if you and Dylan Levitt were one-on-one going for a football, you'd probably shrug him off the ball, but you wouldn't be able to
Right.
pass the ball and control the tempo of
Anyway,
midfield like he does.
the point that was getting made last week was more around the fact concerns in a game that Hibs massively dominated the ball, and a game that was played at snail's pace, and he sort of cramped up at 60 minutes. Unfortunately, he then did that again this week, which is the third time in a row. The state of the squad currently with Joe Neal's injury as well. It, Harry, I'm going to come back to you on this because we did sort of voice our concerns on that last week. He obviously has talent. Look, nobody can dispute that. But does he remain a serviceable option if he can only play an hour every week? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I didn't care what's up with me. I don't know if it's like a conditioning issue or if he's got some sort of niggle or something, but it is strange. Like, you shouldn't be a professional, like, on Craig's point, like, you shouldn't be a professional footballer that can't last like minimum 70 minutes, and that's assuming that you're a box to box that's putting a shift in, but that's not Levitt's game. Like, with the game he plays, he should be able to last 90 minutes, in my opinion.
To be fair to Levitt, he's not the only one as well. I mean, Dwight Gale looks visibly to me to be struggling from quite early on in the game. Adam Fondra last season, I know he did on a couple of occasions play 90 minutes, but really struggled. Dylan Venti last season, probably his average was about 65 minutes. You know, the now much loved Dylan Venti because he's scoring all those goals. I remember, you know, people puffing their cheeks out when the board went up to take him off after an hour, really regular last week. Don't think it's a Dylan Levitt just issue, but we seem to have quite a few players on the books that don't last 90 minutes. And some of the players who are able to consistently last 90 minutes week in, week out, whose performances maybe suffer as a result, probably get unfair and quite undue criticism as a result of them playing all the time. But some of the guys who can't last seem to get a bit of a free pass because they only get 60 minutes because their conditioning can only withstand that. Doesn't seem fair to me.
yeah, you've probably got a sort of mirror image of players in there, don't you, really, with Josh Campbell and Dylan Levitt. Campbell can sort of run all day and gets his criticism and sort of technical side of the game. But
look at the conditioning of the Cadden twins. I mean, the hardest position on the pitch to play from a conditioning perspective, wing back, you know, the distance covered, but not only that, the sort of turns, the changes of movement, you know, a lot of thankless runs as well they'll make in there where they don't see the ball, decoys. The conditioning of those two guys is probably where everyone needs to get to be honest.
yeah, look, there was obviously big news last week with Ben Kensell, but just before we move on to that, I do want to just get your overarching feelings on this sort of current run of form, unbeaten in 9 in all competitions. I think that is including the cup game. 3 draws in the last 5, 2 of them disappointing, one of them a decent point at home to Rangers. Are we starting to tail off a little bit? Are we starting to see us return to the mean, like sort of what you've suggested would come, Craig, you know, in the last wee while, or is it purely a physical thing in terms of numbers and bodies? You know what I mean? Like, what's your thoughts?
I'm still kind of where I was before with the form, to be honest. It's sort of like I've been banging the sort of leveling off drum for weeks now. Like it's going to happen. Kind of almost try to mentally prepare myself for it more than anything. But I don't know if I would say that because I think even the weekend we're what 10 minutes away from
Mhm.
another win, and probably something we're not even suggesting. And ultimately, we all know the reasons why we've not got that win. So no, I'm still happy with the form, obviously. Until Hibs lose a couple of games on a bounce, I'm still going to be happy with the form because I think it's fairly unrealistic to expect Hibs to go consistent 9 games runs unbeaten. To be honest, I think over the course of the season we're not going to do that. So I think when this kind of run comes about for Hibs, we probably just have to be quite happy with it.
I certainly have the same opinion. Do Harry or Liam, do you have an alternate view? Harry's not paying attention.
No, I was from my point of view, if you keep winning at home, not against teams called Celtic or Rangers, and you draw away, then I'm never going to complain at the form. Like realistically, St Johnstone and Ross County, it is 4 points dropped. Like looking back at the season, if we're less than 3, like if we're within touching distance of third and we don't get it because of those 2 games, then it's just a bit frustrating.
And
From now,
I think it might be something to do with the 10 games we didn't win at the start of the season.
Yeah, but when we didn't win those 10 games, we were absolutely shit. Now we're not. Like we were dug meat to start the season, and now we're in a position that we should be beating teams. Like at the start of
No,
the
I
season, I
know,
would
I
have
know.
expected to win those games. But between now and what do you call it? The split, we've got 9 games left, and for me, I want at least minimum 12 points. I know that sounds like only 4 wins and thingy games, but I think that's definitely enough to get you top 6. But I'd probably be hoping for minimum 15. Like that's that. Like I want 15 points. I think that'd be enough to get us in the European spots going into the split.
If I mean 12 almost certainly does. And we spoke about
Yeah.
that's 42. That's 42 points, and I don't know if we spoke about it on pod or off pod. We sort of, if you win your home games, you're almost
Yeah.
certainly going to finish in the top 6. So Liam, just round us off on the sort of
No,
current state of affairs.
just gonna say, you know, we've got the most draws in the league of any team. I think we're now at 10 draws. I think I'm at 9 or 10 draws.
Nine.
The most draws in the league. We need to start converting some of those draws into wins. You know, we've drawn 3 of the last 4 in the league. You know, and 2 of them, as we've touched on, St Johnstone and Ross County, are definitely games, even though they're away from home, definitely games that we'd expect to win. But even more so, given the context of the games, you know, St Johnstone down to 10 men for a long period and going ahead against Ross County. So we do need to not keep drawing games. You know, I know that's a fucking painfully obvious thing to say, like you need to win the games, but you know, I think the only ones in there really where you're looking at draws being acceptable are maybe the games against the Old Firm, and that's probably it, to be honest. I think the rest of them, the goal has to be to win games. Craig Sutton said something that I just wanted to link back to. Craig said that you know, it's pretty rare for us to go on 9-game unbeaten runs. Well, I actually did a wee bit of research on this today, so the listeners can play into this one as well. So in the last 30 years, that I've been going to football, how many times have Hibs gone on a 9-game unbeaten run in the top flight?
The top flight, right? Okay.
In the top flight.
I want to
10
say that I
unbeaten
seen
runs.
something the other day that said when we last done it, which was Zach Ross's season.
I'm going to say 4. I'm going to say
I was going to say,
mate, I was going to say
I had
4 as
4
well.
as well. I remember because 4 is the consensus.
Unanimous.
So four times in the last 30 years.
Correct.
That's my guess.
Is that including this run or not?
No, I would say excluding 5, including.
Shite bags changing your answer stick.
So are you going including
5
Harry?
total.
Are you going including Harry? Yeah.
No, so I'm saying 4 total. They're saying 5 total.
Right, 5 total. So Ewan and Craig are correct. It's 5 total. Would anyone want to hazard a guess under which eras those 4 happened?
Can I just
Jack
say those
Ross.
2 are shite bags for changing their answer?
No, I didn't change it.
No, I thought the question was how many.
Oh,
So I genuinely thought the question was what have we done it?
So
Jack Ross
in
COVID.
2021. So that was 9-game run, 6 wins
Tony
and
Mowbray.
3 draws. On the back
Alex
of that,
McLeish.
they lost to Rangers, Ross County, and Livy.
Oh, at Christmas time.
What did you say, Craig? Sorry.
Tony Mowbray.
No, Mowbray didn't
Alex
have one.
McLeish.
Alex McLeish in the 2000-2001 season went on a 10-game unbeaten run, 6 wins and 4 draws.
What was the most Neil Lennon got? Can we in on that mad
Is
run?
Lennon,
I think he'd have done it.
I'll throw Lennon in there.
You'd be wrong.
Because we only got beat
Neil
Hart.
Lennon
Nah.
in the run at the end of the 17-18
It's
like one-
season went 11 games, which is the longest run, 8 wins and 3 draws in that period. And who
was
did we
Lennon.
lose to on the back of that?
Hearts
Who
at
did we
Tiny.
lose to? Yeah, Hearts at Tiny, correct.
I was Southeast Asia Hibs for that, Harry.
Hey, oi.
Anyone going to have a hazard a guess on who the 4th one is? So it's Ross, Lennon, McLeish.
30
Who's the 4th one?
years.
Surely wasn't it? No, Calderwood went about fucking 9 without a win.
No,
I mean, 9
no,
fucking
no.
unbeaten.
This is going to be
Nine
like
without a
early. This will be like
9 without a shot on target.
what does 30 years take us back to the mid
95.
95. It might be 9 games.
He's joint with Lennon on 11 games.
It has to be something in like the late 90s. There's no way it's happened in my time frame.
There's too much speaking. Liam, who's the managers we've got correct so far?
So you've got Jack Ross.
Yep.
Obviously, current David Gray, Neil Lennon the 17-18 season, and McLeish in the 2000-2001
Was it Yogi Hughes?
Correct. Yogi Hughes.
Oh,
now.
yes. Before
Now.
Christmas.
Yeah. So
And then we got
do you remember the run of fixtures? Because the Yogi Hughes one, in some respects, is made kind of more impressive by the games in that 11-game run. So in that run,
we won at Ibrox.
we went to Motherwell 1-3-1. We weren't good that day, but
Was that Stokes?
We drew 1-1 with Rangers at Ibrox. It's not the David Murphy, not the 1-0 Murphy.
No, Stokes got goal of the season.
But yes, but what cost us was on the 27th of December lost 4-1 at home to Rangers to break up the run.
Stokes scored after 12 seconds.
Class.
I think I've told you my
crazy.
I think I've told you my story
times.
about that. I think I've told you my story about that Rangers game that ruined it for us. I don't know if I probably have. My granddad was still going to the games at the time, and I think the game maybe was a Sunday, and Hibs had been on Football Focus on the Saturday, and they'd done a feature with John Hughes, and he was talking about how great Hibs have done, and the whole focus of the thing was if Hibs could split the Old Firm, because I don't know if we were like second at the time or third, maybe just like a couple of points off of whoever was in second, and my granddad was just like, "That's us done." As soon as we get like national cup, he was like, "We're done." And then obviously we score after 12 seconds, and it's the beat 4-1. And then I don't know if your research took you that far, Liam, but did we know then only win like one in the next 10 or something after that and scraped
no,
fourth?
it wasn't quite as bad as that, but we did go on we lost 6 in a row in the league from late March to early May, including a 4-1 defeat away at Hamilton.
Did we not lose 5-1 at St Johnstone as well?
Yeah, we did. That was a midweek game. I was there.
Was that the Graham Smith game?
It was a Thursday night.
Me and my mum got lost. So we got in Livingston. We got lost before we got to the fucking Forth Road Bridge that night. Never mind it. And I got served up a cold rustler. Anyway,
so
the signs are ominous then.
4 times in the last 30 years, other than the run we're on just now, it just shows you. But I know you are maybe not delighted with the lack of transfer activity, but we are actually living through a good spell at the moment.
Absolutely.
Can I just throw it whilst we're doing throwback stories? For that goal, after 12 seconds, whenever it was, that's when the OG podcaster Gav for Hibs Talk, I used to sit next to him, and he literally got up the stairs as the ball went back into the back of the net. I didn't see him come in, and he literally threw me about 4 yards in the air, and it was a very great celebration. Then there wasn't so much hugging for the foreseeable 90 minutes.
Class.
That was it.
And more good news. Last week we spoke about the need for change at the top of Hibs. I'd just like to say I think we're running the show, because last Monday we rated players out of 10 last week. Hibs wanted everyone to rate Jack Iredale out of 10 the next day. We said there still needs to be change at the top. A day or 2 days later, it's announced that Ben Kensell's run the club. So I don't know about you, Liam and Craig, but this is all very convenient timing for Harry coming back up the road as well. But what were your initial thoughts on that, Liam?
Fucking really difficult to summarise, to be honest, because I wouldn't go as far as say I feel conflicted, but I think in some respects you kind of want to have some stability at the club. And obviously the CEO moving on creates at least a period of instability. I think, having said that, I think recognise that he's been here for 3.5 years. I would say that's probably pretty lengthy tenure for any CEO of any organisation. I think certainly on pitch, I think the sample size would show that he's taken us as far as he can take us. Really, not in the 3.5 years, obviously 2 8th place finishes and a 5th place finish. From a club that when he took over had finished 3rd the season before, I just don't think on-pitch performances have been good enough. The ripping up of a structure to then go back to that structure a couple of years later on, I think really set us back quite a long way. And then, there's the kind of what is described as the commercial side by people who I don't really think fully understand how football business works. Yeah, the commercial side, which is kind of heralded as a success. I think, what I would say to that is obviously club controlled income's grown. We touched on this last week, but we have had to speculate a lot to accumulate more club income. That is generally how these things work. So if you are given money to make money, generally that is something that you can do. So if someone gives you £1 million to build a new hospitality suite, you just have to go off and go to tender and find the right organisation to build it. It's not necessarily quite the success that some people would like to paint it to be. Having said that, I think the club is in a slightly better position off the park. Just in terms of it has been modernised a little bit. I think there's a lot of work that maybe we don't see as well that's sort of gone on in the background, but I certainly wouldn't be looking back on his time at Hibs as an overwhelming success.
No, I mean the general consensus, Harry, when did we ask for a sort of rating on it? The general consensus was 5 and below, and the general plus points were all around the hospitality and the commercial side, as Liam says, that sort of gets brought under one sort of umbrella when there's loads of different sort of aspects to it. I personally, Harry, I don't see that if the commercial side was such a success, why a CEO would lose their job in the lead up to accounts coming out. We sort of touched on what we think we might see in the next couple of months whenever they're released. What did you make of it all? And maybe do you have a highlight and a low light of the last 2.5 years of Kensell culture, as we coined it a couple of times on episodes?
I'm glad that turned into a question at the end because I thought you were just going to leave
shut
me with
up.
a statement for a second there. Yeah, like I wasn't as anti Kensell as you guys were. I wasn't particularly pro Kensell. I don't really like the concept of the golden quadrant in general. But yeah, I don't wish him any ill after he's left. Go and do your thing at another club. Yeah, I like Rocky Bashiri. There's another polarising take, and he apparently drove into Norwich and gave them the old 1-2 to get Rocky up the road. So good on you for that. You made a terrible decision to hire Lee Johnson. You then made the terrible decision to keep him at the club, and that was really the sticking point for me. In which after he probably should have left. Because it did kind of set us back to the state that we were in at the start of the season. So yeah, I'm not arsed. I think there's other people at the club I'd rather have seen leave. There's a certain one in particular that I think is very obvious that I don't want at the club, but I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Craig, do you have any highlights, lowlights from the time?
Hospitality's class. That's probably my highlight. But no, listen. I think somebody that's in charge of, as I've heard, perhaps from the horse's mouth, hiring and firing managers. Although he doesn't make the final decision on whether these guys are hired or fired, I think obviously a CEO plays a massive part in that. So I think if you were to judge him off the field, I'd say he's done fine. He's done the job I would say that was required of him. On the field, it's been a massive disappointment his entire tenure that he was at Hibs, barring one or two sort of highlights, if you like. But yeah, he's hired and fired way too many managers for to be an on-field success. So yeah, nothing against the guy, but let's see what we can get better moving forward on the field.
Running direct to football only lasted 12 months as well, and very quickly decided it wasn't the right route to go at. Look, we've been very critical of Ben Kensell sort of on the podcast, probably for the best part of, trying to get my timeline right, is it 18 months or is it now not 2 years now since probably since the back-to-back derby defeats. That would probably be when it started. The one thing I would maybe say as a highlight is I do feel like, perhaps to his detriment, that he tried to be very candid, probably. Like he was pretty good value, and we obviously had the opportunity to speak to him a couple of times and on our podcast episodes, and perhaps, like I said, to his detriment, maybe that it came back to sort of bite him. Maybe said too much at times that couldn't be followed through. I'm even thinking towards last year's EGM, giving a guarantee that the financials will be better, that we won't be relying on loan players. Just a lot of spin at times that I think has come back to bite him. Personally, because fans remember this stuff. It's not followed through. It's not a sort of smaller. Someone's boosted our numbers there. Who was that? But yeah, look, I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? Like a CEO leaving. It's not a manager. It's not a big player leaving. It's a weird one to discuss. But
you've no emotional connection to a CEO, like the person that runs the business. Nor should you really have an emotional connection with the CEO. I think, in some respects, I think we probably felt a lot closer to Leanne Dempster, because I think she was someone who I think probably more highly prioritised fan engagement. That seemed to be a big part of her agenda when she came in. The club was essentially kind of broken from a fan's perspective when she came in. So rightly, she front and centred that and made fan engagement one of our key priorities. And I don't think it's been the same priority for Ben Kensell. I think his number one priority has been, making money essentially for the football club. And I think that unfortunately has come at the expense of other parts of the sort of business scorecard, and ultimately where we've ended up with is a club that is really focused on income but not focused enough on other aspects of it. And I think that is really interesting, given that we've got an AGM that's usually in about 4 weeks' time this year. So I do think obviously that timing is somewhat interesting given his comments last year. But yeah.
Do you not think it's quite a good sort of natural place for it to end, or that sort of reign of being more sort of money focused and business focused, and now we can kind of more go towards a football focus?
To an extent, yeah. But I mean, I think I work for an institution. I won't reveal who, but when they've gone to an AGM, the chief financial officer has ensured that they stay on to the AGM even though they've left long before that day, so that they can explain the year's financial results. I would be very surprised to see Ben Kensell at the AGM in a few weeks' time explaining why the results are poorer than he'd perhaps indicated last year. I would be very surprised to see that level of accountability taken, to be honest.
Does anyone have any particular things they would like to see in a new CEO in terms of, like, what do we need? Is it just a total priority on football? Is it someone linked to Black Knights?
Somebody that values longevity. I'm sick of chopping and changing at Hibs. I want somebody that puts value in sticking out with people and processes, and just has a plan and sticks to it, rather than one thing failing and instantly changing, which is what obviously we've chopped and changed both managers and sort of philosophies over the last 3-4 years, even down to the academy systems as well, and that even the recruitment process is chopped and changed. 1 minute we've got this focus, and then the next one going, oh, that's not work, so we'll change to this. That doesn't work. Oh, we'll go back to what we had before, even like director of football. So just somebody that's going to come in and stick to the plan.
I think the number one priority for me has to be that it adds to the volume of people that Hibs have that tick in the Mikey Stewart good people making good football and decisions category. That's got to be the number one thing. Just so then 2 months later, when there's a little bit. When there's a little bit of bad form there, it's got it can then say there's just not enough good people there. Any other business on the non-football side?
Just really quickly on that, I was quite pleased to see that Tim Bezbatchenko is going to be involved in the recruitment of the new CEO. Someone who's obviously got a fair degree of experience in football operations. His role within the Black Knight group, I think, will help us essentially cast our net a wee bit wider in terms of the candidates that we're looking for. I don't think there's the same sort of restrictions with the CEO that you get for head coaches, in that he's got to know the Scottish game. I think a CEO just has to understand how to run a business, essentially, and how to focus on all different elements of the scorecard. And I think the CEO is going to have a very different job, because they're going to come in and presumably on the back of some pretty grim financial results, depending on where we are in the sort of context of the season. I think obviously they'll have a huge amount of work to do over the summer in terms of what we expect to be a record number of transactions, as they're now called, in terms of player acquisitions.
Transactions per day.
People moving on. It's going to be an extremely busy time, and I think it's an extremely difficult job. The other thing I'll have to do, I think, is continue the work that's gone on to repair the relationship with the rest of the Black Knight group, because I think doesn't sound like that's necessarily been a good place for the last 6 months.
Looking forward to being able to read the Ultras banner again at the weekend. I'm assuming that'll be the right way around again.
No, it was upside down against Ross County.
Oh, was it? Oh.
They're going for other heads as well.
Right.
The quadrant.
I was just going to jump in there and say, actually, just to give Ben Kensell a bit of credit. I actually, just what Liam was saying there about the next guy coming in who's going to have an awful lot of work to do, which obviously he clearly does. But I think maybe they'll have a better blueprint to work off, a better starting position than maybe Ben Kensell had, certainly with the off-field stuff as well. I think. I just think they've got a much better starting position commercially to build from. We've got sponsors coming out our ears, and so I think there's obviously not as much work needed to be done there probably. Maybe a wee bit more relationships on that side of things. So I think they've got an easier off the field starting position. Obviously on the field, all these
Liam, I
these
can
guys
see
out of
you.
contract.
Sorry, Craig. Liam, I can see you really want to say something, but I really want to talk about football again.
Right, okay. Can I just really
Let 'em do it,
quickly
let 'em
check?
do it.
No, I mean, I don't think I agree with that they're walking into a better place, to be honest. I mean, I think, yes, in terms of income, they're walking into a healthier position, but I think if you look at the relationship between, you know, the Golden Quadrant and the supporters, I think if you look at, you know, the on-field stuff, the new structure they've put in place, I think a lot of what a CEO's role about is about building connections with the supporters and the club being there being a meaningful relationship between the club and its supporters. You know, we're about to enter 150th year. I actually think this new person's walking into a far tougher job, in all honesty. And I think where, you know, there was a school of thought that I saw through the week that, you know, Kensell made that statement at the AGM based on his projections of where we were on the table at that moment in time, which I think just shows you just how, you know, naive that was to think that we were going to end up the season where we were at that point in time, that those financial projections were made on the footballing position at that point in time. So probably not explain that particularly well, but that was school of thought.
Which I think was fifth.
I think it was fifth. I think it was fifth at that point. And that was February. You know, you don't tend to finish the season where you're at. And I think that just shows there's a level of, I think there is a level of distrust that's been built between the supporters and the ownership group, which the new person will have to work very, very hard to rebuild.
Yeah.
Can I just, sorry, one final thing, Ian, just because I want to annoy you by saying another thing on this. No, I just want to make sure, there just better not be a Tory bastard that's here to drive up prices and try and maximise profit off fans. Like, I'm not saying that that's what I'm not saying that's Kensell. I'm just saying, like, loads of football clubs down south have changed kind of hierarchy and then just started bumping up ticket prices and just get that to fuck. Like, carry arse with just Hibs becoming a business as opposed to a football club.
And it's conjecture, it's hearsay, but ideally someone who doesn't walk around telling staff to wear poppies, and they must wear a poppy as well. That would be good. It should be. It's a personal choice. You shouldn't be told. I wouldn't dare to tell someone what to wear to the work. It's a personal choice.
And that's what I maybe didn't tell people the team lineup. They tell people the team lineup days in advance.
Ideally, didn't like everything that Rishi Sunak and Jake Humphrey post as well.
Yeah, can you read that last YouTube comment? I think that's very important because I agree with it.
Becky for CEO, not going to assume he's no going to Asia. He's bluffing. That's what I said, mate. That's why I opened up this segment, mate. I think it's far too coincidental, my man. Look, let's get back to the good stuff. Hibs are playing in batshit crazy football club at the weekend. Aberdeen are winless in 13. Two of the winless games came against Hibs. They sort of played their part in us turning our fortunes around in the last game at Easter Road. They have went about their business in the January window differently from us. They've made a multitude of signings so far this window with no signs of improvement yet. Like I said earlier, you naturally are cynical about your team, so I'm sure we're all thinking they're going to win at some point, so it'll probably be this weekend, the same way that if your team's 1-0 up with 5 minutes to go, you think they're going to concede a goal. Craig, do you actually have a clue what to expect from Aberdeen at the weekend?
Not really, to be honest, no. Anytime, well, to be fair, if I go in any of the games that I've watched them recently, they've been absolutely fucking shit. So maybe I'm expecting them to be poor, but I'd mind a couple of weeks ago I penciled this in as my loss in this run for us, and them not winning a game makes me even more confident that I'm going to be right with that. It is absolutely pessimistic HSE tonight, but I've just got that absolute fear right through me. Obviously, our turning point in our season was against Aberdeen at Easter Road, when we were on a similar sort of run to them. I think it just has Aberdeen being poor, us on a good run, and them getting a win over us. So hopefully one of you guys has got something a wee bit more sort of upbeat.
From what I've seen of them and the small bits like with highlights and stuff, and I watched a game against Hearts, and I feel like I watched them in another game recently. Can't remember. Maybe
Rangers.
Ibrox. Aye.
No.
I feel like in spells and games they look really good. Do you know, like I think like at times, even when we played against them at Pittodrie, they had a spell where they looked really good. But oh my God, just kick the ball behind their defence. Just kick it real hard and real long and real high and make them
That's how we
turn.
scored it. It was Trump.
Look at what Liam's pal did at the weekend. Like,
Tell you what, he's going to be eating some fucking humble pie before the end of the season, aren't you? Because he is cooking. He
he
is
did.
fucking
He only,
cooking.
someone said
It's
he
a
scored a double though.
tap-in.
It was only one, wasn't it? It was only one.
Only one.
When I was on
He was just a
Flashscore, it came up
nuisance.
as Olasanya at the start.
He was what he is. He's just an absolute nuisance of a football player.
It's-
But you know, some people didn't like effective football players. You know,
It was is it disappointing, Liam, that Rubicic got hooked at half time? It seems to be of his own
yeah.
request, so the chances of him playing are probably slim. Like that's a negative for us, surely. He's awful.
I don't think he's awful. I
Okay.
think he is. I think he is one of those defenders. Like when they're on a good run, he looked almost impregnable. Like he looked like so good because he's one of those extremely aggressive, high risk defenders that when things are going well, it's great, and when you're not winning the ball, you do look really cavalier and awful. I did see something, by the way, about him maybe coming off because he had
Apparently shot himself.
which is obviously that's a
Wait, like literally,
having to
like
anyone on the pitch.
Oh right, fuck.
I don't know if that's true or not. Like it was obviously a bit of speculation, but I don't really have anything more on the scouting report to add on Aberdeen other than you know the games that obviously they've played against us, where they actually I think they have some pretty decent individuals. I think they've actually got I would be quite confident saying I think they've got the third best squad in the league, but for whatever reason, he just can't get a tune out of those players that he's assembled at the moment.
I know.
I just think that Aberdeen are so ready to lose. Like the thing is, but genuinely, they go into games, they play
I
okay.
know what
Like,
you mean, yeah.
Motherwell away, they were dominating. Then they conceded a goal, and then they didn't have another shot for 40 minutes against Hibs. They looked really good, as you said. We scored at Pittodrie, and they didn't do anything for the rest of the game. Like they're just cowards, to be honest.
They're vulnerable.
Like,
They're vulnerable.
I don't know
at this
about
point in
cowards,
time.
In the
Harry.
comments has described them as fragile, so
Yeah.
similar word you, and which is actually a really good summation of what they are. They're fragile.
I think cowards is maybe a bit harsh, to be honest.
I think cowards on a team that's got one win in 13 games is really harsh. Like,
I know,
think they're brave men that stand up and definitely fight against adversity.
Harry,
Because
well
when
done,
they were
your
good at
age,
this,
well done.
mate, what are we talking about? Mate, they started the season when things were going good. Everybody was fighting for every ball. Nowadays, they're fucking shouting at the tackles.
I know. I just think these things in football, you described it perfectly. Like as soon as they lose a goal, like they can play really, really well for 30, 40 minutes of a game and then lose a goal and the heads go down. Yeah, partly yes, that you could absolutely put that down to maybe stand up and be counted and show a bit of bravery. But which is fair, but I also think that a lot of that is just down to confidence purely.
Yeah.
Just real
I
confidence.
think Aki's just put a really good point in the YouTube chat that I was going to mention, saying that you can sort of run over them in the middle of the pitch. Shinnie and Nielsen both lacking legs. I think Nielsen especially has been I know we're going into individuals here about another team, but at the start of the season looked like a fantastic signing. But you know he's what 33 years of age, has now played football consecutively for 12 months. Obviously, with the way that the league worked, where he came from, he hadn't had a break. So, and I just think Hibs need to try and get that. I don't think we need to play pretty football at the weekend. I think we need to get them turned and we need to run at them and be in their
100%.
faces and just really make things awkward for them, get them turned, make. I remember it in the game at Easter Road. There was a spell in the second half because the main stand side. We just had like 3 throw-ins, and we just threw it over the fullback, and they just kicked it out 4 times in a row under no real pressure, and we went for like the halfway line to like the edge of the box. Do you know? And you like just stupid things like that. Like they just really appear to lack confidence for me, and we just need to really be. Like I say, you can say be on the front foot by playing lovely football, but just be quite an aggressive side. I think at the weekends how Hibs won the game.
I totally agree. I would just skip the midfield. I would just fuck the midfield. I would just knock it in behind the 2 of them all game fucking long. Whoever it is, if it's Angus MacDonald that's getting a game now, is Gavin Malloy fit? Yeah, I don't know. He
no, he's out. I'm sure he's out for the season.
I'd get behind him. Hopefully this time when Nicky Devlin decides to palm the ball out the pitch, we'll actually get a penalty this time. I would skip the midfield. I wouldn't worry about the midfield being slow because I wouldn't even engage them in the game. I just
They've signed a boy called Alfie Dorrington on loan from Spurs. He came on for Rubizic at the weekend.
They signed the Latvia captain as well, didn't they? Christos Tobers or something his name is. I mean, they're fair play.
Is he the one that gave the penalty against Hearts?
No,
that was Nielsen.
At that point, that was Nielsen. Who was playing at centre half. And that Tobers did play at the weekend. I think that was his debut. I noticed they've not played Jack McKenzie. They've signed a fullback. Jack McKenzie's not been playing either. Anyway, that's enough about Aberdeen. What Hibs players suit that then, Liam? So we're talking about bypassing the midfield. Who do you want to see up top to get him behind?
Signed to Tayosi Olasanya before the end of the deadline day and just play him. He has run over the top of them in the last 2 games. That pace and behind him. I mean, it is pace that is the issue here. So you're probably thinking Martin Boyle. You're thinking Ellie Ewan if available. If not, maybe Kieran Bowie from the start. I think I wouldn't be going. I know Craig's shaking his head about Bowie because maybe a bit too early, but I wouldn't be thinking this is necessarily a game for Dwight Gale. I would just be looking at them absolute all-out pace. Probably Mariah Welsh in the middle as well, just for his legs and his energy ahead of Dylan Levitt. And then you've got Levitt off the bench potentially if you need somebody to kind of change the game later on. Obviously, the 2 captains goes out.
It was Ewan and Boyle, wasn't it, at Pataudry? I mean, if you
to be honest,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
And I think even Josh Campbell's legs and energy in the middle of the park against Shinnie, Nielsen and Palaversa. I think the boy Palaversa does look like a decent footballer. To be fair, he's also got a bit of pedigree, but I don't think he's the quickest across the ground either. So I would say Josh Campbell for his aerial prowess and his energy.
Yeah,
I've been impressed with that Palaversa. To be fair, every time I've watched him, I thought he's probably been their stick out.
didn't he? He was on the bench at the weekend as well.
Yeah, I noticed that. I just see Josh Campbell having a great game at the weekend. Like I think it's made for him. For the reasons that you guys have just said, like if we're skipping the midfield, like I just see him running right past Shinnie and Nielsen. Like I think that's going to be so easy for him athletically to get past these guys. Like you can see bookings coming there with them, not being able to keep up with him. If we start fast, I think we win this game.
So, boys, you aren't ready for the Junior Hoylett show you're going to witness on Saturday afternoon. He's coming for a revenge game against Aberdeen. He's got the ingredients. He's thrown them in the pot and he's going to start cooking, boys.
Aberdeen at home was this. I think Aberdeen at home was the start of the downturn in his form. Actually, I think it was quite poor that night. But do we all agree it's a game that should suit Hibs well? Then, do you think like they are a team in this current time that should almost play to our strengths? Like, because whilst we're 4th top goal scorers in the league, and defensively we're sort of average. We're 6th for 7th. Like, but our possession stats are maybe not reflective of what you think a team would be that are scoring that level of goals. Like, I think it is a game that would set up well for us. I'm really, really curious if I could get a striker beside Boyle from each of us, because Liam, I know you sort of listed them. I think it is a game that's tailor-made for Bowie, but it's probably too in early. So I'm going to be controversial and go for Miko.
Based off what?
I knew that was going to wind him up.
But based off what? The last 4 times he's played, he's been shite.
That doesn't mean you're a shite player, though.
So I'm going to... Do you want to hear the explanation, or are you just going to shout?
I asked the question, then you went silent. So obviously I'm just going to shout again until you fill in the silence.
You fucking did the pause for breath, that's why. It's like when your boy used to shout you down the stairs. If you didn't respond in 2 seconds, man, they went again. I think he's got more running power than Dwight Gale to get him behind. I wouldn't want to see Junior Hoylett in the starting 11, certainly not as a centre forward. And I am working off the assumption Ellie won't be playing, if I'm being totally honest. That's my honest opinion. So I would be going for Miko down the middle. I think, look, he's got his flaws, Harry, and he hasn't been great, but I think running the channels and sort of trying to be a bit of a nuisance and sort of maybe even roughing the defenders up a little bit. I think he's got the ability to do that. And if he starts the game well, then you know that he does have quality in there. You know, like we have seen that in spells. So I think if he plays a game and he wins that first battle, then he could have a really good game.
Well, since we're making
things
up, mate, I'd put Lewis Miller in for the runs behind the defence, and I'd put him in for his bombing down the flanks in the final third, and then I'd put Bursic in at holding midfield, because obviously he's got the ability to break up opposing counter attacks. Just if you want to make things up about players instead of actually talking about the way they play, then fair enough. Jesus Christ. So, Liam, feel free to answer it properly if you want to, but my God.
Lost me at Bursic, to be honest.
But he said Miller up top, I was like...
No, I think it would be Yuan, Bowie, Gale in that order for me.
I'm playing Gale. I'm playing Gale. I think he's the most viable option at the moment. I don't want to see Bowie starting a game yet. I think he's what do you get like against Clydebank 25-30 minutes and then 20 minutes at the weekend. Like I don't think you jump from that to a start. Maybe getting half an hour next. And I just think I don't think Yuan's going to be an option. So Dwight Gale.
Can I just say in seriousness on McCullough, I think that despite his frame, I just don't think that physicality is a main part of his game. I don't think he's particularly good in the air. I think what he is good at is getting on the end of scrambles in the box. Like, I think that's where he scored most of his goals for Hibs.
Just as well whenever put balls in the box in that, eh?
Yeah, but I just think
that fucking strength.
But what you've explained is trying to get a guy that will consistently get him behind and convert those chances. And the only times he's been through on goal, he's completely fluffed it this season. So for me, like I do agree that there is definitely benefits to McCullough, but I just think what you'd explained there to me didn't sound anything like the striker we've seen this season.
I'm just wondering on what occasion Dwight Gales ran through one-on-one with the goalkeeper then and slotted it away for argument's sake.
When did I say that though? I didn't say that nonsense.
He's probably the other
make
option,
that up a bit. But no, that's what Junior Hoylett's going to do, mate. Because Junior Hoylett's absolute gravy. Get him started, boy. Get him started. Yes, sir. He's cooking. He's cooking.
Look, I mean, Craig, you went for Dwight Gale, Liam. I think you've mentioned two players that probably aren't fit to play, so kind of Dwight Gale by default. Bowie and Yuan, are we of the agreement that they're not going to start? Is that no? Your face suggested otherwise there.
I mean, I don't know what stage Bowie's at in his recovery, but to me, 25 minutes to 20 minutes, I don't think the next step's half an hour. I think it's probably more like a half or more.
I just think Hibs will be nervous after the last time. I think they'll be very, very cautious.
I think the issue is that he played 2 games in 4 days the last time.
Maybe.
And he has had that operation which is supposed to stop the recurrence of the injury. You might be right, and I think you probably are right. Let's be honest, they will be cautious with him, and rightly so, because he was the marquee summer signing. But
it does feel tailor-made for him.
The games are running out, man. Like at some point, he's got to go and he's got to play. Look at the games that are coming up. I don't think there's a game that's better suited to him than this.
Roughing defenders up, getting in behind. It on paper should work well. Any other changes to the team? Obviously, it was the same 11 that played against Motherwell. I would probably. Liam, did you mention Manneh Welsh for Levitt? Maybe. Yeah, I would.
Newell's availability would change that. If he was to be back in, you'd probably go with Newell inside alongside Trianis.
Has Levitt done enough with his goal and in his recent appearances to stay in the team for you over Manneh Welsh or Newell?
I don't know what the fitness situation is there, to be honest. Like as I say, like not to bash the guy, but if he's only lasting 60 minutes a game, and then you're coming up against someone like Shinnie who's going to boot you relentlessly and get away with it. And I think Manneh Welsh has actually looked pretty good. Like, I know it's been limited minutes, but even at the weekend on a really shit pitch, I actually thought he moved the ball pretty well. And he's a player that I was quite excited about and just kind of petered away. So I wouldn't mind seeing him actually get starting minutes whilst the squad's kind of in the right chase. Personally, I'd have a Levitt start, but I wouldn't mind seeing Mariah
Okay.
Welsh in there instead.
And finally, Craig, any changes for you, maybe at the back or?
Uh, no, I wouldn't have changed too much. I'm still of the mind you don't really change things at work. I've been impressed with a few defenders. I think Iredale, obviously he's got his plaudits, but I'd also touch on O'Hora as well. I think he's actually sort of just recently steadily gone under the radars. Has been fairly solid to be honest. I think he's really
Mhm.
put too many I was just too many feet wrong, but put a foot wrong. It does depend on sort of January business as well. Maybe even if you get a new signing or two that's coming in, ideally we have players coming in that are ready to go. Because obviously I don't think there's much point in January unless they're absolute outstanding signing a player that's like not ready to go.
Mhm.
So no, but I wouldn't change it too much. I think Levitt probably deserves his place despite obviously the sort of fitness issues that we've highlighted. And then I would maybe then look to be bringing Mariah Welsh off the bench half an hour to go. So that wouldn't
Excellent.
change too much in summary.
Well, Craig, score prediction, and then we'll get this show wrapped up.
Obviously, you know my real thoughts on my sort of pessimistic view on it, but if I view it on a one-off game and don't take any sort of superstitions into account, I'm going to say 3-0 Hibs.
Okay. I'm going to come in now so that my score doesn't get stole. I am going 2-0 Hibs. I think we are due a clean sheet, and I think that'll come this weekend. Harry?
When it rains, it pours, baby. 4-1 to the cabbage.
And Liam, finally.
I think despite everything I've said, it will be a really tight game. I'm going to go 3-2.
3-2 Hibs. Happy days. We do enjoy that. We're due a 3-2 under David Gray, surely. You know, it's written in the stars that it's going to happen at some time. It has to. Maybe this isn't the game that would deem it written in the stars. But still House of Hibs wins, even though we can literally see it in Craig's eyes that he's lying through his teeth there and conning everyone, despite everything that he said in the last couple of weeks. But that'll do us for another week. Let's. Ooh, wow. I want to keep going, apparently. Harry, it's your last episode next week for a while, so we'll try and make that special in some way or shape or form, and hopefully everyone's in the chat. Absolutely ribbing you. But we will be back next week for Harry's last episode, a transfer window live, and generally just more good times.
And just to
Cheers!
confirm, what day of the week is that?
Monday.
Cool, Monday. Cool.
Smashing Harry. Do you know how when we hit that end record button? I could have done there. Liam, any Louis Van Gaals this week?
Oh no.
Nah. I think Craig's cringe factor last week was off the scale. I don't think he can handle another week. I'll maybe do some impressions next week to fill the time on the transfer window special. Maybe the listeners can request who they want to hear.
Half an hour segment where we're waiting on the transfer window closing.
Oh, can we do a segment of did Lee Johnson say it? I think that'd be so much fun.
That'd be good, to be fair. That'd be good,
Do you know what? Right, sorry, we're totally rambling on here. But do you know what came up on my do you know what came up on my TikTok the other day? It was like worst soccer AM performance ever, and it was Lee Johnson doing like the 60-second drill challenge, and he didn't score once. I mean, the keeper made some unbelievable saves, but he did not score once. I think it was in between him leaving Sunderland and coming to Hibs. Oh my God, I was pissing myself laughing. And Lauren was sitting beside me, she was like, I recognise that voice. It's not like I was like, it's a fucking idiot. Anyway, I think that's an extra 2 minutes of content that nobody needed. We will be back next week. It will be Harry's last episode. It will be transfer deadline day. So it should be a good one. And here's hoping we're looking back on 3 points for the Hibs. Cheers.
Cheers.
Right.
Done.